Iawn, mae'n edrych bod datganiad arferol, sef mae'r cyfarfod yma yn cael ei weddarlledu ac bydd ar gael ar-lein yn hwyrach ymlaen. Os ydych yn hapus gyda hyn, gadewch y cyfarfod fel. Diolch yn fawr. Felly, drosodd i chi am hyn.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn i chi. Croeso chi byd yma. Gawn ni ddechrau sgwylwch chi dda ymddiheuriadau anwen.
Naomi Lwydau Thompson a yr unig un bydd i dderbyn.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn. Datgan diddordeb. Mae'r sgrin wedi diflannu gen i rwan. Dwi ddim yn gweld y pwyllgor.
Ydych chi'n cael problemau technegol, Elwyn?
Mae'n iawn, mae'n i ôl rwan.
Ie.
Iawn, dyn ni ar gychwyn. Datgan diddordeb. Mi fydda i'n datgan diddordeb ar eitem 4 ar ôl cael gair Doug Iwan Jones. Cymaroedd bod gen i ddiddordeb yn y cais yma ac felly mae fydd y cynghorydd Ifor Glyn gymryd y gader ar rhif 4. Fydd yn ôl wedyn i rhif 5. Mwyn arall ar diddordeb? Nag oes, o'n i mlaen i'r cofnodion. Mae gynnig bod hyn yn gywir, sa rwy'n eilio. Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Sa'n rhywbeth yn codi ar y cofnodion? Os nag oes, da ni'n mynd i'r rhif 4, felly fydda i'n gadael y cyfarfod a Ifor yn y gader. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Mae aros yma wedyn.
Da ni roi chi aros arall aros, Elwyn.
Chi, iawn, diolch yn fawr.
Ac yn aros ar-lein felly.
Diolch Elwyn. Symud eitem 4, estyniad anethedig i rheilffordd trac Hyl Llyn Tegid i gynnwys 12 metr o drac rheilffordd, croesfan rheilffordd, codi gorsaf rheilffordd newydd, adeiladau ategol ar gyfer ingen dren a datblygiad edol. Dir y bala. Reit, mae gen ni cynta siaradwr i siarad.
Cynnig swyddog i gychwyn.
Sorry. I ddechrau efo Richard James sy'n yn Prosbero ac yn cynrychioli'r parc.
Gai jyst yn sydyn bydd pan fwy'n ohonych chi, neu i gyd bosib ddim yn abod Richard, felly jyst i gyflwyno Richard yn sydyn, pryd ath y cais yma i fewn, roedd y swyddog arferol at yr ardal yna, sef Iona, a'r momolaeth. Oedd Sara wedi gadael ni hefyd i fynd i gweithio cyfeirtydd o Cymru, felly dda ni gomisiynu Prosbero Consultant. So mae Richard, da ni'n lwcus iawn cael Richard i weithio hefo ni dros y misoedd dwytha yma. Mae Richard o gweithio Prosbero Richard James. Jyst i gyflwyno Richard i chi.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Board of members. So yes, we're here to consider the extension of the Llyn Tegid Railway. There's a bit to get through, to be honest, and the presentation is slightly lengthy. I'll try and get through it as quickly as I can and summarise things, but obviously we can come back to issues and discuss them in more detail if needed. Start with just to present the site to you. You can see there the red line boundary in at the existing Penybont station to the south, and then heading north over the listed bridge, over the new bridge, running along the embankment before diverting off, running behind the rugby club, adjacent to the playing fields, through the green wedge area here, and then the station area at the top on the edge of the settlement. First plan here just shows the existing situation to the south by Pennybont. So you've got neighbouring property to the west, the existing redundant outbuilding Pennybont Cottage there, and another neighbour to the east, the listed bridge, and before continuing on. With regard to the proposed, just to begin with, you'll see there's a second track being proposed to the north of the existing station. Before curving round then and meeting with the existing to run north. There'll be a new level crossing over the B4403. The existing Pennybont Cottage outbuilding is proposed to be demolished. These levels will be raised slightly to provide the level crossing, and a new access is proposed for Lake Cottage here to bring it away from the track. The track then continues over the listed bridge, and I just provide you with a section there where you can see the new levels and the handrail proposed on the southern side. Obviously, the existing station as it is, that's looking back in from the road. So you've got Lake Cottage to your right there. View of Lake Cottage from the existing footpath. That's the Pennybont redundant cottage. Looking across the road then to where the level crossing will be over the listed bridge. And there's a front view of the cottage as well. As we move on north over the new bridge, this shows the existing situation. And then you can see the introduction of the track along the left-hand side there. The carriageway itself is shifted to the east, and you'll notice that the footpath on the eastern side is removed, and the bridge is widened slightly to accommodate that. So as you see there, that footway will be removed. This enclosure will be shifted out slightly, and the new track will run down the western side. Moving on, it follows along the new embankment now, which is being completed by NRW, and continues then to run before it comes to its next level crossing for the public right-of-way along the embankment. And you can see there that a gravel bed is in place as part of the NRW works. This photo shows the neighbouring property to the north of the Rugby Club's car park. The level crossing that's been put in. And then the track continues behind the Rugby Club before dropping down to the playing field levels. So there you see the gravel track has started to drop down. It'll continue thereafter then on the north side of that hedgerow, so on the playing field side, with the footpath the other side of the hedgerow. Then we come to the first of the station buildings. So within this Green Ridge section then, in the next field along, there's a locomotive shed with an associated concrete slab and a runoff track as well. This is taken from the public footpath, so looking north. So the track will be the other side of this fence line. Obviously looking back to the playing fields there, you can see the extent of the hedgerow, which will be cut through. And then this shows the location of the locomotive shed. And again, the track will continue onwards through that section where those two smaller trees will need to be removed. This just shows the public right-of-way view looking further to the southwest over the existing agricultural fields. And then as we come into the station area, this shows the existing, so you can see the location of public sewers and water mains, the existing hedgerow or tree boundary to the south, and there's a fence line running down here, which delineates the edge of the conservation area. So as proposed, as we come in to the station area, you have the coal bunker and associated service road, which also maintains access to the agricultural fields to the south. You have a new signal cabin with hedgerow, new planted hedgerow along the southern boundary. The track's obviously running in two platforms either side. To the southern side, you have a carriage building with these trees retained. And then picnic area to the west, a parking area behind the Cynllunio properties, and the station building itself, which I'm going to in a bit. This shows the locomotive shed, carriage building, and signal cabling elevations. So fairly conventional portal frame, corrugated sheet structures, save for the signal cabin, which is obviously more modest in scale. And then the proposed station building itself, you can see it's got a decorative facade facing north, fronting onto Plaza Street car park, and then followed by a single-story pitched corrugated section to the rear. Within this building, you have your principal entrance, a retail area, ticket office, toilet facilities at ground floor, and then the cafe with outdoor seating area as well. And then at first floor level, you have your office space for staff. This photo just shows along the public right of way the relationship between the neighbouring properties, Ystad Caibach to the north, followed by the public footpath, followed by then the area where the station buildings will start. Looking a bit more to the southwest there into the station site. And again, looking into the station site, you can see the southern trees existing there. This is taken from the Plaza Street car park. Look, so this will face the main frontage of the station building. And a few more photos just for context of the car park there. This is looking back up Cynllunio from the station frontage. Next one in the other direction then, looking towards the station. This is taken from the west on the main road in. So the side view, the western side view of the station will be visible there, and you can see the rear of Cynllunio properties there, where the car park area will be in this area here. And again, another side view there. So these next two slides, I'll just go through these. These summarize the key elements of the proposal, basically, as we heard. The site, given its length, goes through a number of different constraints. The key ones here really being the SAC, the triple SIs and the Ramsar site. It's wholly within the catchment area of this Mynediad SAC. It runs through the Green Wedge, as we said. There's a number of historic assets to it as well. With regard to the listed bridge, the scheduled ancient monument, Castell Gronw, and the conservation area as well. This application has been consulted in the normal, proper way. Publication in Cambrian News, neighbour notification, and site notices along the route. Because this is a major development, it's also been subject to pre-application consultation. At the time of writing the report and this presentation, we've had 12 responses, and the key points are summarised within the report. As an update, in the last week and a half, or as of yesterday morning, we've received circa 275 representations from third parties. Haven't been able to go through them all because of the timing, but those I have read mainly in support of the application. Only read one, which was querying it, and the key points being raised were raising the importance of the economic benefits to the local area, the fact that this will be a key education facility in teaching people about the cultural heritage of the area, promoting sustainable tourism as a key positive for the area, retention of young people, and much needed investment into the area. We've also received a letter from the local MP and AM over recent days requesting this application be deferred. Because of the complexity and length of the site, a lot of LDP policies are triggered for this, for consideration, as well as the higher level legislation in the habitat regulations, the environmental impact assessment regulations, obviously, and national planning policy. So the main considerations, and as I say, there's a fair bit to get through, and I'll summarize each one rather quickly, and then obviously we can delve into greater detail if needed then. It basically follows the structure of the report in the order. So starting with the principle of development, your main planning policies are up there. Basically, because whilst in open countryside location, this is an existing facility, it's an existing tourism attraction and an existing form of economic development. And national and local policy enables the extension of these facilities in open countryside locations. What is rather key there is the definition of what constitutes sustainable tourism. And the consideration is that in principle, this is capable of falling within that definition. However, that's obviously subject to detailed material considerations. Turning to the impact on the local economy, the application is supported by an economic impact report which quantifies the benefits to the local area, and they're summarised there for you. Officers have no reason to disagree with this, and I think it's fully recognised that this development will bring significant amount of benefit to the rural economy and the surrounding economy of Bala. Just to quickly touch on the retail outside the centre, because Bala has a designated centre, consideration has needed to be given towards whether it would distract or take any trade from the centre, but given the scale of what's being proposed and the proximity to the centre, that's not considered to be an issue. With regard to the impact of phosphates then on the SAC, the application, as we said, lies partly within the SAC, wholly within its catchment, and runs adjacent to the Ramsar site. Because of its nature, the conservation of habitats and species regulations is invoked, and a habitats regulations assessment is required. And the authority is directed in that legislation to only allow development, provided it will not adversely affect the SAC. It's worth noting that although Llyn Tegid is not failing its targets in terms of phosphates, the river downstream is, and we are directed not to increase pollution loads into that river. Bala Wastewater Treatment Works does not have a phosphate permit, and so the application originally proposed to connect into the main sewer, and that was found to be unacceptable because of the increased load into the works. Since then, a number of different options have been presented to the authority, firstly with a temporary cesspool, and then subsequently it was suggested we could delay the provision of toilets and cafe and limit ticket sales to their current levels. These have been duly considered by the authority, and we've reconsulted with the likes of NRW, held meetings with officers there and with our own ecologists, and given quite a bit of consideration into trying to find a way through and seeing if there is any potential to get around this issue of phosphates. However, as we stand at present, and given Dual Cymru's current situation with the wastewater treatment works, officers are unable to find a suitable way forward, and as such we are unable to conclude a successful HRA. With regard to other biodiversity matters, the application has provided biodiversity assessments, and both officers and NRW are happy with the scope and findings of the assessments, and with appropriate condition, biodiversity mitigation can be appropriately controlled. Turning to the issue of the green wedge, there's a number of elements of the proposal that go through the green wedge. The green wedge wraps around the station building basically, so it's the land to the west and east of that, and then which runs up to the rugby club. The key consideration is whether it impacts upon the need to retain openness. And after due consideration, the station buildings in and around that area are found to be acceptable because of their physical proximity and links to the main settlement. The track itself running through is found to be acceptable because it's running along existing man-made features, the playing fields and the public right of way. However, the locomotive shed and the concrete slab and associated track is considered to be unjustified in this location. It's not known why it needs to be there, and it just represents a more visible and permanent element of the development, which is a bit more detracted from the rest of the buildings. I should also clear that there's uncertainty over the level of acoustic screening that might be required, which obviously, depending on the form, length, location, could have other impacts on the green wedge as well. Turning to cultural heritage, this is broken down into a number of elements. Dealing firstly with the conservation area, the main issue of concern here is the station building. It's going to be a prominent, widely visible building within the conservation area itself and its wider setting. That in itself is not a reason to restrict development. However, officers do need to be confident that it's going to conserve and enhance the character of that conservation area, given its prominence. And it's felt that based on the level of information we have at present, we haven't got enough confidence that it's going to actually conserve and enhance the character. Turning to the listed bridge, again, in principle, it's recognised as a positive in bringing a new use to that listed bridge, a new reason to keep it maintained and retain its active use. However, there's considered to be a lack of detail on specific elements, namely the handrail, in terms of, for example, the fixings, the materials, the finishes, the colours. And given this is a listed structure, such details really do need to be in place before the decision is made. With respect to the loss of Pennybont Cottage, it's recognised as a building of local importance, and both the National Park Authority's Historic Environment Planning Officer and Gwyned's Archaeological Planning Service has noted the lack of internal assessment on this building. So we've been unable to conclude on its true significance, and therefore at present its loss is considered to be unjustified. Finally, turning to the setting of the Scheduled Ancient Monument, Castell Gronw, visually considered acceptable. However, both Cadw and Gwynedd Archaeological Planning Service have noted the absence of the geophysical survey. The applicant hasn't been able to access that land to conduct a survey, and given the significance of what might be found there and its potential impact on the development, again, unfortunately, we view that we don't have sufficient information to come to a conclusion of its impact. Just finally, on the wider historic landscape, the environmental statement submitted has provided an assessment, and all statutory consultees and officers are happy with the wider impact in that respect. In terms of landscape, just dealing with the remaining elements, basically. So firstly, the carriage building itself, whilst it is noted as being slightly uninspiring, it is considered to be functional in its use and appropriate in its design, and with appropriate conditions to perhaps improve that frontage onto the platform is considered acceptable. So too is the surrounding areas and the proposed landscaping works. And with regard to the wider landscape views, members will have copies of the viewpoints provided in the pack, and the wider landscape impact is considered acceptable, which NRW will agree with. In public rights of way, physically, there's been no objection received and no concerns with regards to the impact. Operationally, key consideration here is what the railway will do to the recreational value, particularly within that green wedge where it's less developed and a bit more tranquil in nature. Again, after much consideration and based on the 2022 timetable, which is the only firm timetable available for consideration in the application, it's considered on balance to be acceptable. There's still significant parts of the day where trains won't be running, and so the shared use of those areas is considered acceptable. With respect to amenity, the environmental statement has provided information with regard to noise, vibration, dust and odour. With respect to noise, the Pollution Control Department has advised that these acoustic barriers will be required to protect the amenity of neighbouring properties. We don't have details of that, and we haven't been able to reconsult on their effectiveness. And so we are unable to conclude there's going to be an acceptable impact on amenity until we have those details. Also, vibration is noted as requiring a bit more information just to substantiate the conclusions made within the submitted assessment. With regards to highway safety, members will note we've had sustained objection from the Trunk Road Agency, which and Welsh Government direct the authority to refuse this application. I am aware that discussions are ongoing between the applicants and Welsh Government. However, as we stand today, with those objections, we're unable to conclude an acceptable impact. With regard to the Highways Authority, whilst they haven't logged a formal objection, they have raised certain concerns. One being the potential for vehicles to leave the carriageway and enter the railway, and what will happen to passengers if there is a collision, what measures are in place to minimise that. And given the potential severity of that consideration, it's my view that we need to have those details in place before we come to a conclusion on this. With regard to flood risk, just very quickly, the flood consequences assessment was submitted, and following an initial round of consultation, additional information was submitted, which has satisfied NRW requirements and officers, so flood risk is considered acceptable. Drainage infrastructure, again, sustained objection from Dŵr Cymru with respect to the developments over its assets within the station area. Dŵr Cymru require accessibility to these in order to ensure their maintenance and repairs. And with those objections in place, we're unable to conclude an acceptable impact. And finally, with regard to the Welsh language, in line with policy DP 18, a community linguistic impact assessment has been submitted. And again, following an initial round of consultation where the authority sought advice from Iaith, this assessment was updated, the commitments to their strategy was strengthened, and that is concluded to be now acceptable with an appropriately worded condition. So to conclude, the application has been subject to extensive and repeated consultation, and due consideration has been given to the options provided to try and combat the phosphates restriction. And whilst it is acknowledged that the proposed development will bring key benefits to the area, we are in a position today that we're unable to recommend approval because of the unsuccessful habitat regulations assessment and the other material considerations as been discussed. So the recommendation before you today, members, is to refuse the application for a total of 7 reasons. The first, dealing with the phosphates issue and habitat regulations assessment. The second, deals with the impact upon the green wedge. The third, on the conservation area. The fourth, on the remaining elements of the historic environment. The fifth, with respect to amenity. Sixth, with respect to the highway safety. And seventh, with regard to Dŵr Cymru's assets. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Iawn, Richard. Yn ymlaen wan at siaradwyr, gai roi gwahoddiad i Dilwyn Morgan sy'n mynd gynrychiol cyngor tre. Tri munud.
Diolch Mr Cadeirydd, mae'n dda bod fi ddim eisiau berw i wy neu fyswn i'n rhedeg allan amser. Gai ddiolch i chi am y cyfle i roi chydig sylwadau ac i ddatgan cefnogaeth llwyr i'r cais i ger eich bron chi bore yma. Dros y 9 mlynedd dwytha, mae'r ymgeisydd, sef Rheilffordd Llyn Tegid, wedi ymgysylltu a cyfathrebu yn gyson a thylwyr gyda'r rhanddeiliad lleol fer enghraifft Cyngor Tref y Bala, a dwi'n falch o weld bod y maer yma heddiw i gynrychioli cefnogaeth unfrydol y Cyngor Tre. Cynghorau Plwyf Llanuwchlyn, Llangywer, Llandderfel, mudiadau lleol, ysgolion lleol, ac wedi cynnal nifer o ddigwyddiadau i rannu gwybodaeth am y cynllun arbennig yma gyda'r cyhoedd, a dod â'r rheilffordd yn ôl i'r Bala am y tro cyntaf ers 1965. Maent hefyd wedi ymateb yn brydlon i unrhyw ymoliadau neu bryder am y cynllun sydd wedi codi dros y 9 mlynedd. Felly, mae yna ymdeimlad cry o berchnogaeth lleol cymunedol i'r cynllun, ac felly roeddwn ni'n meddwl bod yn bwysig fod y llais yna yn cael ei glywed heddiw. Wrth gwrs, mae manteision economaidd amlwg yn y cynllun i'r ardal gyfa Bala, Llanuwchlyn a Thu Hwnt o ran y defnydd o adnodda a busnesau lleol, yn ogystal â chyflogaeth a prentisiaethau. Ond mae hefyd yn mynd i fod yn arf pwysig wrth ddatblygu'r egwyddor o dwristiaeth gynaladwy. Bydd cyfle i roi trefn ar ddarpariaethau hanfodol i ymateb i bwysau twristiaeth, enghraifft parcio, toileda ac yn y blaen. Y mae y lleoliad presennol yn ardal Pen y Bont yn hollol annerbyniol ac yn anghynaladwy o ran parcio a caniatáu mynediad i drigolion Llangywer i'w cymuned eu hunant, a hefyd does na ddim unrhyw gyfleustera o gwbl yn y safle presennol. O ran yr adroddiad cynhwysfawr, 128 o dudalena, dwi'n meddwl, ydy i gyd, rhaid i mi gydnabod a diolch am eich ymroddiad chi fel aelodau Pwyllgor i ddarllen a dadansoddi a ffurfio barn gychwynnol mewn ychydig ddwrnodiau ers ei dderbyn. Wrth gwrs, mae gwarchod ein treftadaeth, ein cynefinoedd unigryw yn bwysig i ni gyd, yn enwedig i ni drigolion y Parc Cenedlaethol. Ac rydw gyda ni yn llawn sylweddoli mae chi fel aelodau y Pwyllgor heddiw sydd yn gwneud y penderfyniad pwysig yma ac yn gorfod cymryd yr holl faterion i ystyriaeth. Hoffwn hefyd yr gwybodaeth nodi fod y gwaith eisoes wedi cychwyn i ryw raddau. A mi wna i gloi, felly, am bod fi wedi rhedeg allan amser. Ga i jyst gloi? Oce, diolch i chi. Diolch.
Rwan, roedd gwahoddiad i'r datblygwr cynnau nawr i faint Julian Burney, the developer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You have 3 minutes, Julian.
This is a unique community project that's not without its complexities. It's a proven fact that heritage railways help underpin local economies while preserving the importance of the area's industrial heritage. By extending from Pen y Bont to a site in Bala, it would relieve the parking problems on the B4403, which has proved to be an issue, as well as being a location with no facilities. It's taken over 9 years to get where we are today. We submitted our planning application in October 2021. £1 million has been raised in financial donations and a further £400,000 has been donated in professional services. The money raised thus far has gone to landowners for land purchases, consultants, and £300,000 was paid to Natural Resources Wales as part of the flood defence upgrade scheme. All this is local to Bala. We'll be creating new jobs, both directly and indirectly. Market analysis indicates an incremental spend of £1.3 million in the town and surrounding area as passenger numbers increase over future years. With the station in Arran Street, it will draw the town and Lake Foreshore closer together and the businesses will benefit. With connections to the T3 bus service at either end of the line, it will be part of an integrated transport system. We will provide a facility for visitors to get out of their cars and explore the local area by train. The Bala Lake Railway is a not-for-profit community organisation. The proposed railway is entirely dependent on fundraising. It's critical to the project that planning permission is secured to enable the trust to apply for grant aid and other contributions and support for the development. We're still in the process of resolving some matters. Our consultants finally met with the Welsh Government Trunk Road Agency last Friday, and together we now have a way forward. Consultations are taking place with Welsh Water to address their concerns regarding protection of the existing pipeline. We will comply with the Public Protection Officer's recommendations regarding provision of acoustic fencing and vibration mitigation measures. The Welsh Centre for Language Planning endorses our community and linguistic impact statement, subject to one minor amendment, which we're happy to incorporate. We heard yesterday regarding the archaeological potential at Castle Mound. It's been surveyed and identifiable activity as post-medieval associated with the previous railway station. This project has a significant lead-in time, at least 3 years. So with regards to the phosphate discharges, we propose to cap our visitors at Bala at the current level until such time this issue is resolved. If permission is not forthcoming today with conditions, we request the committee defer any decision on the application in order to allow this progress of these matters to continue. We would also suggest to the committee a site visit. For planning permission to be refused now would be forever to the detriment of the economic prosperity of Bala. Diolch yn fawr.
Ga I jyst ofyn os di Jonathan eisiau deud rhywbeth cyn i agor allan i'r llawr?
Na, na i randi'r... Dwi'n meddwl fydda eisiau dod fewn efo ryw fath o gasgliad cyn atri benderfyniad, ond na, pabell sydd o agor fyny.
Dim problem. Felly, sgil hynny na i agor allan i'r aelodau.
Cyn i fynd ymlaen, ga i weld llun o Pen y Bont Cottage eto, pli, os gwelwch dda. Y bilding bach adeilad bach gwyn oedd hwnnw, ia, yn wrth y bont, ia. Coch o, ia, adeilad bach gwyn yn cael ei ymchwel, ia.
Ie.
Ia, waliau gwyn ar. Na, ia, mae yna lot o sôn di bod am hwn. Os o'n bwysig da chi ddymchwel ail osod o'r arall wrth ymyl. Cwestiwn hynny, cos mae'n adeilad reit unigryw a bod o'n cael ei ail-leoli yn lleol wrth ymyl, lle bod o'n cael ei ddymchwel a'i golli o'r gymuned lleol, mewn ffordd lle bod o dal yna yn rwla, lle bod nhw'n golli fo'n llwyr, dod o'r adeilad bach yn derbyniol i gefn gwlad, sef bechod i golli fo, ond i ail-leoli fo, yn lle jyst i helpu'r cais mewn ffordd. Pwynt ar hynna, a peth arall, y siediau cadw'r injans, mae gynnon ni siediau newydd i gael ei codi ar y cop yn Porthmadog o fama wan, os bosib, efallai i torri nhw lawr pyn bach, neu rhaid gwaith cerig mwy arnyn nhw, lle bod y cladding ar yr ochran bob man, wbeth i edrych ymlaen i'r dyfodol i wbeth i wneud mwy delfrydol i'r olwg orach. Dwi'n gwybod os diwn nhw'n bwynt i fod dilys. Y peth arall, yn sicr, dwi wedi gweld yn hun yn yr ardal yma, mae yna ddau berson ifanc sydd wedi weithio ar lein bach a mae'n wedi prynu tŷ yn Llanstiniog trwy weithio i'r rheilffordd lleol o Porthmadog. Wedi cael prentisiadau, a maen nhw wedi medru llwyddo i brynu 2 dŷ lleol yn pentra Llanstiniog. A mae 2 cwpl bach ifanc yn dod i fyw i bentra fel Llanstiniog yn dangos bod na gyfle i bobl ifanc i ni yn gefn gwlad. Ac os hynna digwydd yn Bala, rhyw fath wedi digwydd yn Porthmadog, fel bod yn tai lleol ni'n cael ei llenwi o bobl lleol, ond mae hynny'n beth da. Mond y pwynt yna, na i ddeud, ar y funud, diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. Roes, siarad. Tim.
Diolch yn fawr, sy'n cadeirydd. Mae'n hollol glir i fi bod mewn egwyddor, mae'r datblygiad yma am bod yn bres mawr i Bala, mae'n positif iawn. Ond, arbennig yn dyddiau yma, di pethau ddim yn gallu mynd ymlaen os ysgrifennu sy'n dweud bod o ddim am peidio cael impact newidiol ar safleoedd fel yr afon Dyfrdwy, Tegin o'r Ceredigion. I fi, mae yna lot o waith i wneud a dwi'n bod yn rhan o hyn yn rhannu yn gyfer naturiol. Mae lot o waith da i cael ei wneud. Ond yn anffodus, ar hyn o bryd, mae yna dal lot gormod o cwestiynau, mae yna lot gormod o wybodaeth sydd dal eisiau cael ei tynnu mewn i ni gallu gwneud penderfyniad glir ar hwn. Mae'r asesiad risg a reoli cynefinoedd ydy'r un bwysig i be dwi'n gallu weld. Os da ni ddim yn gallu gwneud y benderfyniad bod o ddim yn cael impact, ddim yn bod yn niweidiol, ddylswn ni ddim mynd ymlaen i roi caniatad i hyn. Hefyd mae'n ambell peth arall allan yna sy'n codi yn meddwl rhywun fel mae'n mwy o godaeth eisiau. Mae'n bwysig iawn bod pobl yn cael ymlaen, a da ni wedi clywed gan yr ymgeisydd bod y waith dal yn mynd ymlaen i llenwi'r dulchoedd sy'n yna fanna. I fi, mae'n egwyddor yn un dda, ond mae gen nhw waith i wneud i ni gallu cyrraedd sefyllfa lle fysa ni'n gallu dweud dylse hwn mynd ymlaen.
Bydd hynny'n argymelliad.
Wel, yndi. Mae'n dweud gyda fi dylse ni ddim wneud penderfyniad.
Bydd hynny'n argymelliad. Swn rwy'n eilio'r
Beth ydy'r
argymelliad.
gynnig ti felly?
Cynnig yn gyrw.
Differw.
Gohirio.
Gohirio, oherwydd ar hyn o bryd. Mae'n amlwg yn lot o waith yn mynd ymlaen ar y moment a dylse ni'n rhoi amser i hwnna gael ei. Cadeirydd, can I jyst dod nôl ar y pwynt gohirio am wan? Dwi'n meddwl mae hwn yn pwynt pwysig, cos mae'n sawl, mae'n cwbl o lythyrau fel ydych chi'n gwybod, fel ydych chi wedi clywed gan y gwleidyddion, dydo fewn, aelod o Seneddol dydo fewn ar hynna, boed hefyd yn gofyn i ni gohirio hwn. Dwi'n meddwl mae'n bwysig bod fi'n atgoffa y Pwyllgor bod mae'r cais yma wedi bod fewn ers Hydref 2021. Darni ofyn i'r datblygwr dynnu'r cais yn ôl Chwefror blwyddyn dwytha. Di hwn ddim yn barod a darni gyfeirio at bost rates a darni gyfeirio at y trafnidiaeth trafnidiaeth sydd yn parhau yn ogystal â'r bethau eraill. Dyna ddim priac efo'r swyddogion ar y cais yma. Wrach fel fi bwysleisio hynna hefyd. Mae'n jyst fel fewn fel cais oer iddyn ni fel swyddogion. A da ni wedi bod yn gyson chi dynnu'r cais fan ôl tan mae'n barod, oherwydd pan mae'n gais i fewn, mae'n bwysau mawr ar yr adran, ar y swyddogion. Da ni'n cael e-byst llythyrau o hyd ar beth yma, mae'n llwyddo fewn wrth yma fel ydych chi wedi clywed. Mae'r datblygwr yn gohebu hefo swyddogion. Pan mae'n wybodaeth newydd yn dod fewn, fel sydd wedi bod yn digwydd, mae rhaid ni reit aml ail ymgynghori efo'r holl ymgynghorwyr statudol ar hyn. A da ni yma i wneud penderfynadau'r ceisiadau. Da ni ddim yma i eistedd ar cais tan mae'n barod. Mae wedi bod fewn 19 mis wan. Dwi'n cytuno efo'r sylwadau ar y ddigwyddor. Mae'r swyddogion yn derbyn gallwn bod yn rhywbeth da. Ond dwi'n teimlo bod yn anheg ar yr adran ac y swyddogion i ni eistedd ar hwn tan mae'n barod. Oherwydd fy nghyngor i fysa cryf ar hwn ydy i'r datblygwr dynnu'r cais yn ôl. A mae'n gwybod safbwynt y swyddogion ar y cais yma rwan. Os mae'n tynnu fy nôl, mae'n gallu gweithio ar pwynt. Dyna'r cais o fewn blwyddyn sy'n rhaid talu ffi cynllunio arall, either ail gyflwyno'r cais heb talu ffi. Dwi hefyd yn poeni am rywfaint o'r gwaith arolwg ecolegol sydd yn hen erbyn rwan. Mae gen arolygon ecolegol fel arfer shelf life o ryw 19 mis, 2 flynedd tan mae gorfod ail gwneud o. Felly, dwi ddim yn meddwl na ni sortio hwnna allan erbyn y Pwyllgor Cynllunio nesaf. Dwi'n meddwl wneith hwn cymryd rhai misoedd. Wrach tuag at diwedd y flwyddyn, dwi'm yn gwybod. Ac ar y pwynt yna, a fyddwn ni mewn sefyllfa lle mae'r gwaith arolwg sydd wedi cael ei wneud ar y cais yn fy hen a methu ni'n penderfynu fo beth bynnag, a mae yna rheswm gwrthod newydd. So fy nghyngor clir i'r Pwyllgor ar hwn, dwi'n cydymdeimlo hefo'r sefyllfa, da ni'n cefnogi'r egwyddor, ond mae cadw'r cais i mewn yn creu cyrpen mawr i ni fel swyddogion ac mae rhai pwysau, mae'r baich ar y swyddogion, a mae'n creu llwyth o gymwysthodau eraill na i ddim mynd fewn i wan o ran manylder y peth. So mae yna gyngor clir ganddo fi ar hynna, dwi'n poeni am gohirio. Ar ôl clywed hynny, gael tynnu nôl o beth sy'n awgrymu a mi ddim yn gallu o holl sefyllfa a ffaith bod y gais jyst i fod i mewn a ddim digon o safon o blaen llaw yn ddod i fi. Mae'n rhaid cael eich chwyd i gyd yn bres cyn bod yn meddwl.
Sgen chi cynnig arall?
Cynnig arall, os ni'n gallu ofyn i'n ymgeisydd tynnu nôl am cyfnodau, bydd nhw'n gallu sortio'r pethau sy'n angen neud, a wedyn a'r blwyddyn
Cynnig wrtho. Eilydd i hynny, sy'n fawr.
Na eilio. Be o rhyderu fi, ac yn ei ddisgyn yn ôl, yn hwyni fi amdan y gais oedd statudol yn gwrthwynebu nifer ys yma. Ac yn ei clod yn ymgeisydd bore yma bod Trymcrod sy'n yn hapus bod yna trafodaeth efo dŵr Cymru, ond da ni wedi cael y gwybodaeth yna, de. A sa hwnna'n wedi creu cymhleth mawr iawn. Sa hynna grisantio y priffyr carthrasiad a dŵr. Swn ni yn fodlon, tan ma da ni'n cael gwybodaeth iawn, dwi'n meddwl ti'n fod iawn i ni heddiw yma, go ahead, cos mae hynna creu trefrythio mawr, bod o'r rheilffordd a gwestiwn yn patch yn dyn lle fod o'r partio'n ei bod o dŵr ar y rheilffordd yma yn broblem mawr ynde.
Yn sydyn iawn, os gael dod nôl ar hynna, dwi'n meddwl os ydyn ni'n meddwl, mae hwn bron yna, ac os dewch chi yn ôl i'r pwyllgor nesaf, neu hyd yn oed y pwyllgor ar ôl hwnna, sa'n derbyn wrach gohirion yn rhywbeth call, ond dwi ddim yn ffyddiog iawn, nid yw'n feddwl hanes i cais yma, mi fyddwn ni yna erbyn y pwyllgor nesaf.
Gael dod i mewn efo beth sy'n gynnig Tim. Mae'n hollol glir beth sy'n gynnig, cos ys i ddweud cynnig tynnu'n nôl. Wedi di ddim... A mi'n cadeirydd wedi dweud gwrthod, felly be'n union ydy dy gynnig di?
Os di'r ymgeisydd yn gael ymlaen efo fel mae, os gen i ddim dewis.
Felly gwrthod ydy dy gynnig di at hynny. Iawn. A mae June wedi...
Iawn, oce, diolch yn fawr. Brian Angel.
Thank you, Chair. I've been listening to that discussion. I'll be interested when we get the actual proposals and terms, because the issue with withdrawal or deferral is a very interesting one. I'm still not clear where we're at with that. But the 2 points I wanted to make was that, similar to June, the issue of the statutory consultees and their concerns with that still not being resolved. We're certainly not in a position to make any decision today until that is either clarified or that is their final position. The question I wanted to ask, and I recall some reference to it, but I'd welcome the views of officers on this in terms of the cumulative tourism impact on the town and surrounding area from the additional visitors that would be brought into town, and the impact on other activities which may already be under pressure. We know, for example, around Bala Lake, we do have those pressures. Do we perceive that or is there any information provided about the cumulative impact of visitors and as well as the positive economic evidence which we've got, the negative evidence of that, and what the balance is between the two and how that's going to be accommodated? I welcome views of officers on the level of detail that we've had on that and whether we've had sufficient to understand that properly.
Yeah, Brian. Richard.
Yeah, so it's obviously a very hard thing to quantify in terms of cumulative impact on businesses and existing activities. How many visitors are attracted for a railway alone, or how many are going to go on and use other facilities, etc. So in terms of the information that's being provided, it's quite limited, other than obviously acknowledging the economic benefits. I think it's heavily related to the traffic implications on Bala. Is perhaps a key way to illustrate the pressure that will be brought, and with the objections we've got from the trunk roads and the concerns of the Highways Authority, who also share the points of the trunk roads agency made. It brings us back to the fact that at present today we don't seem to have the information to give us confidence that certainly impacts of traffic can be dealt with properly and not lead to knock-on detrimental effects on the town.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Brian?
Yes, I was also considering the additional littering and so on, but that's even harder to get at. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Cynghorydd Dilwyn.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Mae genna i bryderon mawr yn un gwrthod hwn heddiw a dweud beth o'n ystod chi. Fedrai ddim cefnogi gwrthod o. Felly, mi falla rhaid i mi felly gynnig gwrthod yr argymhelliad a cefnogi y cais yma. Mae gyda i amryw o resymau dros hynny. Mae rhesymau da ni wedi dwad sydd ddim yn galluogi i swyddogion i gefnogio yn rhai sydd bosib i datrys. Ac yn fuan iawn hefyd, dwi'n gweld y broblem yno, ond i rhyfeddu gyda dyledu sbarch o glywed bod yna dros 200 solityrau wedi'w derbyn, a nad o'na mond canran ohonyn nhw wedi cael ei darllen, ac nad dim ond o'r canran wedi cael ei darllen, do'na mond un yn gwrthwynebu, neu doedd hynny ar ni'n clywed bod nhw'n gwrthwynebu, ond bod nhw wedi rhoi sylwadau. Mae'r cyngor fala wedi cael amser hir i benderfynu dros hwn, ac ar 2 wahanol achlysur wedi cefnogi yn 100%. Mae o'n awgrymu mi trwy'r llythyr yna bod bobl bala yn ei gefnogio 100%, ac y marn ni ar hwn ydy bod ni'n ffeindio ffordd i gefnogio, achos wrach mae rhaid i ni gofio hefyd yn yr amser sydd ohoni bod hwn yn ddatblygiad hanesyddol a pwysig iawn i ardal Bala. Mae Bala'n ei hun yn dre arbennig iawn. Ac os o'n i'n licio meddwl bod yna rhywfaint o'r posibiliadau yn cael ei tynnu nôl yn y cyfamser. Felly mae adael o ar hynna rwan, ond yn sicr, os o'n i ddim yn medru cefnogi i wrthod o, ac trwy wneud hynny, dwi'n cymryd gael arwain gen i swyddogion, y basau rhaid mi wneud cynnig bod ni yn ei dderbyn o.
Dwi'n mewn o'r hynna, y cynnig ydy bod ni'n gwrthod, yn y bleidlais ar hynna, a wedyn fydd yn agorad wedyn i'r aelodau fod gen bron efo cynnig arall os yw'r bleidlais yn anmethu, os yw'r cynnig yn anmethu. Felly fydd yna bleidlais gyntaf ar wrthod, os yw'n pasio, dyna ydy penderfyniad y Pwyllgor. Os yw'n methu, yna mi fydd yna broses wedyn lle dachnegu. Roedd cynnig ger bron i ystyried yn y eto. Pwyllgor.
Cadeirydd. Can I just dod nôl sydyn ar un pwynt? Dwi'n teimlo am rai fi amddiffyn y swyddog jyst ar peidio ymateb i'r llythyrau. Mae yna gyfnod ymgynghorol statudol lle mae pobl yn cael ymateb i ceisiadau cynllunio. 2 wsos fel arfer, mae'n 5 wsos ar y cais yma gan fod o'n Environmental Impact Assessment Development, mae'n gais mawr, felly mae yna gyfnod ymgynghori statudol o 5 wsos. A da ni wedi cael 2 cyfnod o 5 wsos yn y cais yma, oherwydd newidiadau a gwybodaeth newydd yn dod fewn. Felly, oedd gyda pob parch i Richard, oedd e ar ei wylio os ysdwytha, pryd fath y llythyr yma, dechrau dod fewn, mae rhywun yn amlwg i lobio neu rhywbeth i digwydd yn yr wsos yma, mae yna sawl llythyr i dod fewn lle, oedd gen fo llythrennol ddim capacity i ddarllen, fel gennau ddim chwaith, mae gen i beth eraill i wneud yn y swyddfa hefyd. Felly doedd capacity just ddim yna i ddarllen llythyrau oedd yn dod fewn mor hwyr yn y broses. Mae'r mwyafrif wedi cael ei ddarllen, ond doedd y capacity...
Yn galonogol sgai oedd yn dod cadeirydd, os ydy'r mwyafrif wedi cael ei darllen, mae hynny yn deud nad o'na mond un allan o fwyafrif oedd yn gofyn cwestiynau. A ddim mae hynny hyd yn deud cyfrolau.
Diolch. John.
Ie, diolch yn fawr am y cyfle, diolch yn fawr i'r swyddog a gyfer chi, pawb arall mae'n siarad. A mi wedi cefnogi dilwyn o'n un, mae'n un cefnogi'r cais yma. Mae unrhyw beth sydd yn creu economi wledig mewn ardal, fel ni'n gwybod mae'n mynd o brif ar ydy'r ardal glota yn Ewrop, oedd yn Ewrop yn y blaen latw yn y Lithuania, a mae'r ardal glota wrth gwrs yn Mynediad. Felly mae rhaid i gefnogi unrhyw datblygiad economaidd. Dwi ddim eisiau bod mewn 10 mlynedd dal a gwylodd yn pail gyda'r ardal glota y Brydau. Dwi'n eisiau ni fod, dwi eisiau gweld ni gwella ac os ni gwrthod ceisiadau fel hyn, sydd wedi ag arian enfawr, hybu twrisiau, hybu bala, ond hefyd, hybu Llanwclyn, mae Llanwclyn golli'r siop, mae'r eglwys di cael a mae'r dafarn ar werth. Faint o waniaeth mae Llanwclyn, bentre bach arall, pen arall, a ddim ond y bus yn gychwyn o'r Llanwclyn ac yn ôl i'r bala. Dwi'n byw yn bell yn ôl Llanwclyn. Mae'n mynd i wneud hwb garwyd Llanwchlyn. Wedyn, mae Llangŵer wedyn, mae fan mae cons bob man na. Pan edrych chi, wrth ddim eisiau cons wedyn, dwi'n gallu ar y tren i fanu, a wedyn nôl ar y tren wedyn fi nos. Dyn nhw eisiau'r cons, a wedyn ddim rhaid nhw'n dod efo Caer. Dyn ni'n sôn am sustainable transportation ar y Wyddfa. Dwi'n hwnnw yn gweithio rhywbeth. Ond mi fyddi o weithio fan hyn llawer gwell am ar y Wyddfa, beth bynnag. Felly, defnyddiwch lleihau carbon bendigedig. Yn lle fod defnyddio'r Caer i fod man i sôn am eisiau lleihau carbon ac ati dyma'r ffordd i lleihau carbon. Dyn ni'n mynd yn erbyn yn Gwyddor ni'n hunain. Wrth dweud hyn, sôn am ffosfet. Wel, oedd y siwrau sy'n mynd i'r afonydd, yr holl siwrau sy'n mynd i'r afonydd ar Rhy Gymru. Sa'r siwrau sy'n mynd i'r afon, mae'n ffosfet yn mynd i fod yn y dŵr. Peidiwch yn beio beth arall oherwydd bod dŵr Cymru ddim wedi gwneud ei gwaith ac iawn. A bod nhw'n llechia'r siwreg oll fel lawr i siarad, be oedd yn afonydd wrth gwrs mae'n ffosfet yn mynd i fod. A dwi ddim yn beio'n infermwr y fannu. Beio'r diversity, hwnnw'n iawn, dim problem. Sgrinio, sŵn mae pobl lleol, dyn ni cael 275 o lythyrau, un yn gwrthwynebu. Ond mae rhaid yn ebog, os yna rhyw gwrthwynebu ar fannu, dwi'n sy'n pobl lleol yn cyntaf cadw sŵn, a lleid mewn tai nhw. O, felly mae hwnnw'n oce, os ydych chi'n waith sgrinio, wrth gwrs mae chi'n ffordd modlon gyda dynnu. Pida'ch gwrthwynebu hwn oherwydd rhyw 2 bwynt bychan sy'n mynd i chwalu bob peth ar o'r holl waith ni wedi gwneud. Y bont wedi fod yn well. Bag, pen y bont. Ydych chi eisiau godio, dim problem. Mae dŵr Cymru wrth gwrs yn gwrthwynebu, achos mae'n mynd i gyrchu gwaith yn nhw. Ac mwy o investment yn nhw. Wel, maen nhw'n dweud, it's not for profit. Wel, bydd nhw'n for profit, investment yn blymun yn y gwaith adeiladu gwella bu belled, yna beth sy'n dweud. Iaith Gymraeg wrth gwrs yn ei ffynnu. Wel, dyn ni, rhaid ni gael y gwaith, os di bobl ifanc wedi cael pres i'r poced, rhyw war efo'r lleol, nhw'n ei brynu tai, maen nhw'n gymuned cryfach gyda nhw. Felly, dwi'n gweld ffordd wedyn ni wrthod hwn mewn ffordd, achos i fi mae'n win-win situation.
Diolch, John.
Sorry, just eisiau dod fewn eto. Dwi jyst yn teimlo, mae'n rhaid fi jyst neud siŵr does 'na ddim camarwain ar hwn. Dydy'r isiw'r ffosfet ddim yn bwynt bychan. Mae yna ddeddfwriaeth yma, lle mae'n rhaid ni weithio ato fo. Mae'r Habitats Regulations Assessments Regs 2017, mae'n rhaid ni fod, y geiriad gyfraith ydy, mae'n rhaid ni fod beyond reasonable doubt nad oes effaith ar yr ardal gwdwraeth arbennig.
Ond y mwyn ti ydy, ond chi ddim yn o'r lled yn iawn. Os
ydych chi adeg i orffen, John, mae ecolegydd ni, da ni wedi prynu arbenigedd ecolegwr i fewn i asesu'r y cais yma. A mae o wedi cynghori ni'n eitha clir, dos o ddim, mae yna reasonable doubt fydd yna effaith yna. A fel dweud, mae yna ddeddfwriaeth ar wahân o fama, felly mae rhaid i chi ystyried hyn yn ofalus iawn. Dwi'n siŵr os wneith Iwan ddod fewn tueddu tuag at caniatáu, wrach bod yna rhyw gyngor cyfreithiol pellach ar hyn.
Gael ei cwestiwn yn fanna ar y posri. Ydych chi wedi cael arbenigwyr i fewn i asesu hwn. Oedden nhw'n dweud bod yna broblem yna rwan, unte dweud oedden nhw y basau'r datblygiad yma yn ei achosio. Os yw'r broblem yna rwan, dwi ddim yn gweld y medrwn ni fynd yn groes i hwn a stopio'r datblygiad yma oherwydd hynny, achos os ydy'r broblem yna rwan, mae fyny i dŵr Cymru i wneud rhywbeth amdano a rhoi pwysau yn nhw.
I mean, yes, it's very unfortunate we are in a position, and it's across Wales, isn't it? I mean, and it is retrospective in terms of it's the developments now which are being penalised for things that have gone on before. But we are directed not to increase the pollution load into these rivers until the sewage can be properly dealt with, and it's on those basis which the Habitat Regulations Assessment is failing. And you know, as John advised, legally we're in a very precarious position.
So what you're saying is really that the assessment says that it is not this development because of it.
The Llyn Tegid itself, I believe, is compliant, but the river downstream is not. And so anything upstream of that is going to increase on the load on that river. So this is where we come to on the habitat regulations assessment, and it's consistent across Wales how this is being dealt with.
Clarification on that. The tributary coming in from the mountain, beyond the development is a contributing factor to the phosphate levels.
As I've been advised, that the Llyn Tegid is compliant, but the river downstream is not. So, further downstream, further downflow. So if anything enters that, which obviously feeds into that flow, it's going to increase the pollution load into that area that's not compliant.
The water's coming out of the lake, not the one going into the lake. So I'm asking.
Water going out to the lake.
I fi, mae hwn yn Gymraeg iawn, yn ddod ddim yn Gymraeg chwaith. Achos os di'r lle yn iawn, mae downstream, a di hwnnw'n siarad, os di hwnnw'n siarad, oedd faint o bentrefi a trefi sy'n llechio'r siwraeth fewn i'r afon cyn hynny. Bai dŵr Cymru, dio ddim byd yn ei ffordd yma, bai dŵr Cymru di sortio hwnna allan, mae'n dweud doch o profit, so allan gefwy o blymyn profit a gwella'r infrastructure. Mae'n hen infrastructure, a ti peidio cael stopio hwn oherwydd dŵr Cymru yn gwneud ei gwaith.
At y pwynt o, pwynt yna'n glir, da ni ddim yn mor bell a Chirk yn nhw. Mae o syth i lawr, mae'r afon o bala i lawr dros y trothwy. Mae'r llyn yn iawn fel mae Richard yn sôn. Mae'r afon ddyfdwy dros y trothwy.
Problem cyn cyrraedd Corwen, yn lle o Corwen ymlaen.
Mae o cyn cyrraedd Corwen.
Ydy o cyn cyrraedd Corwen? Ond i môl o Corwen ymlaen?
Wel, sgynna i ddim y map o flaen mi, sori. Dwi wedi gweld cyngor clir da ni'n gael ydy i beidio ychwanegu at hynna, neu mae rhaid ni mewn lle anodd yn gyfreithiol. Jyst i ychwanegu at pwynt Richard hefyd o ran bod hwnnw'n broblem drwy Gymru, wel, drwy Cymru a Lloegr. Mae yna cannoedd, os nad miloedd, o dai yn cael ei gwrthod trwy'r ddeddfwriaeth yma. So, ddim jyst y cais yma sy'n cael ei dal fyny'n hyn. Di hwn ddim yn broblem unigryw. Mae gen i ofn, mae'n rwystredig i ni, chod da ni'n eisiau gwrthod pethau, ond yn yr achos yma, da ni mewn sefyllfa lle, da ni'n cynghori bod gen ni ddim llawer o ddewis.
Diolch. Gael ddod â Kim i fewn? Diolch am ddisgwyl, Kim.
Haia, na, mae'n iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn. Ia, dwi'n cael traffaeth cefnogi gwrthod hwn hefyd yn anffodus yn gynghorydd ifanc mewn ward sy'n dibynnu ar twristiaid. Mae'n taro'r marciau twristiaid cynaladwy, mae'n di lleihau problemau parcio yn yr ardal. Yn amlwg, mae'n di gyfrannu'n helaeth teg at gyflogaeth pobl lleol. So, i fi, mae'n bwysig iawn bod pobl lleol yn gallu aros yn eu pentrefi. Mae rhan fwyaf o drigolion sy'n byw mewn pentra neu tref sy'n dibynnu ar dwristiaid yn gweithio yn y maes. Pobl sy'n mynd mewn i tred, mae hwn yn gyfle rhy dda i golli yn fy marn ni. A mae'r arian mae'n mynd i ddod a'i bala yn swm helaeth anhygoel. Dwi'n cael traffaeth gwrthod hwn yn anffodus o achos. Mae busnesau lleol yn stryglo yn ofnadwy gyda costa byw ers Covid. Da ni angen yr ôl troed yma gynyddu. Yndi, mae'n mynd i achosi chdi bach o broblem yn rhan ysbwriel a bachu. Ond pethau fel am di allu cael ei datrys a pethau fod dŵr Cymru hefyd. Dwi'n cael yn anodd iawn gwrthod hwn yn anffodus. So dwi'n ei gefnogi fo 100%.
Diolch, Kim. Jyst i egluro, yr argymelliad ydy i wrthod gais. Iawn?
Ia. Ia, fyddai'n mynd cefnogi i wrthod. Dyna o'n eisiau dweud, sori.
Diolch.
Diolch.
Mae'n gais byddol iawn, sy'n ei ddadla o ran bydd economi wedi lleol. Mae hwnna'n hanfodol bwysig a mae'r dadleuon yma wedi bod yn emosiynol, yn sylweddol hefyd, ynde. Ond mae lot o gwestiynau yn hwn i fi. Mae lot o gwestiynau'n dal i fod yn sicr o ran farsiantaethau a'r elfennau technegol yn y cais yma. So, dwi'n cael gofyn, ydy o'n bosib yn dechnegol o ran y penderfyniad yma, bod yr ymgeisydd cael cyfle dynnu nôl i nhw cael amser i feddwl am hwn, yn sicr o ran y sylwadau.
Mae'r ymgeisydd yn gallu tynnu'r cais yn ôl. Da ni wedi gofyn iddo wneud hynna ar sawl... Ie, mae gen i berffaith hawl tynnu'r cais, ail gyflwyno'r cais os mae eisiau. Da ni wedi gofyn iddo wneud hynna. Yn hytrach na gwrthod o. Tynnu'r cais yn ôl, sortio'r issues allan. Fel ar pwynt cyn, da ni'n cytuno efo'r gwyddor. Da ni eisiau gweld hwn yn digwydd. Ond mae yna bethau sydd angen i wneud mwyn iddo fo fod yn datblygiad da ni'n gallu cefnogi. A mae'n rhaid i ni wneud penderfyniad heddiw, gwrthod neu caniatau.
Ga i just dweud, Delyth, os yw'n cael ei wrthod, mae gen i 12 mis i gyflwyno eto, yn cael free go fel tai. Ie, i ddod yn dod.
Dod i fan o fewn John o ddeud lan. Mae'n gynnig i wrthod. Os yna methu, mae'n agorad eich unig cynnig arall. So dwi jyst yn rhaid iddo fod yn gynnig ta.
Bydd y tyn mewn i sydyn cyn mynd i...
Ydy'r ymgeisydd yn gallu dweud bod yn tynnu fy nôl lle cael ei gwrthod hefyd? Cyn da ni hefyd y beth yma?
Na, oherwydd rhaid ni gael hynna o ddiwrth yr ymgeisydd.
Dwi'n dechrau trafod yr sôn. Brian Angel.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me have another comment. I have two. One is in relation to the question of the phosphate issue. I have a lot of experience of that locally to where I live in England, and whilst some of the regulations may be different, the principle is exactly the same in terms of planning applications. We have one here that's been outstanding for 13 years because of the phosphate issue. And that's a big application in our locality. And my understanding of that is we cannot, where we are advised in that regard, as an authority, we cannot approve it, and therefore, until that is resolved to the satisfaction under the habitat regulation, I don't know how we can approve it. Secondly, I would like guidance, really, whether this is a sort of application, again, where the Sanford principle needs to be considered as well, as we're dealing with an economic tourism activity, and we have conflict in relation to some of the environmental issues that we are regarded to take account of. So I wonder whether Jonathan or Ewan could comment whether we should also be considering the impact of the Sanford principle in the context of this application, where, as I understand it, environmental issues such as the phosphates and the others that have been mentioned, take precedence over the tourism. I equally don't want to refuse this, but I do not see how in its current state we can approve it.
Yeah, os gael ei ddweud am cyntaf o beth Brian yn dweud efo'r sefyllfa gyfreithiol. Bydd rhaid i ddweud dwi'n rhannu y pryderon am y sefyllfa gyfreithiol. Mae'r habitat regs yn clir beth ydy'r sefyllfa ac mi'n eithaf o'r hynna. Os ydych chi eisiau cyngor pellach ar hynna, dwi'n bodlon o foi, a mi fas rhaid yn gaeedig ar gyfer hynny.
Ar yr ail bwynt, dwi'n meddwl bod y Sanford i'r rhain chi sydd ddim yn ymwybodol y gwyddor Sanford ydy lle mae yna wrthdaro rhwng bwrpas gyntaf'r parc ac yr ail bwrpas. Y bwrpas gyntaf sef i gwarchod y gwella bywyd gwyllt a tirwedd ac yn y blaen. Mae hwnna'n cael blaenoriaeth. Dwi'n meddwl bod hwnna wedi, bron by default, wedi cael ei ddefnyddio yn yr adroddiad fel sydd yn dilyn drwad yn yr argymelliad y swyddog. So dwi'n meddwl, wrach dio ddim yn cael ei gyfeirio at yn uniongyrchol, mae o yn yr adroddiad ac yn dilyn drwad i'r argymelliad yna. Trafodaethau da ni'n cael heddiw.
Diolch. Sorry.
Thank you.
Dwi'n gydymdeimlo fawr, swn i wrth y modd yn gallu dweud dwi yn cefnogi y cais yma a ddim eisiau weld yn cael ei wrthod heddiw, ond ar y llaw arall, dwi'n teimlo'n gyfforddus i'w ganiatáu o achos mae 4 o'r argymhellion sydd i'w wrthod o. Yna, ddim digon o wybodaeth. Wel, sa'n nhw'n cael amser i ymatab i rhain a cyflwyno'r cais, tynnu'r cais yn ôl, a iair gyflwyno fo wedi ymatab i'r 4 yma. Wedyn, sa'n sefyllfa well a fysa ni'n gallu, swn i feddwl, i ganiatáu o 100%, achos dwi'n gwybod gymaint a hwn yn datblygu'n economaidd i ardal Penllyn. Ac mae gynna i feddwl lawr o'r ardal yna a resyma personol. A wedyn, swn i wrth y modd weld o'n cael ei ganiatáu, ond ddim heddiw efo'r cwestiynau yma bod yna'n digon o wybodaeth.
Diolch chi. John?
Yna, jyst yn bolus, oedd hi'n bod ni wedi adnewyddu'r standard policy a bod y ddau yn rwan fod yr economi a biodiversity yn un, fod o'r un lefel bod ni ddim yn gwaniaethu ei gyda'i. Ond dwi'n fod i'n pasio o'r rhaid blynyddoedd yn ôl.
Wel, ddim ni sy'n creu'r egwyddor.
Fod i'n parc wedi newid yr egwyddor na, wan fod y ddau yn un lefel, fod wedi gwaniaethu ei gyda'i. Y ddau mor greu ei gilydd.
Mae rhan o'r ddwriaeth yn dweud.
Elwyn. Edgar, sorry. Elwyn. Mae yna neb yma sydd ddim eisiau gweld hwn yn digwydd yn hala. Wedi gwrando ar bol. Ond mae'n eich edrych ôl at y ffaith ac Pwyllgor Cynllunio am yna reola. Mae yna 7 o adroddiadau, maen nhw wrthi siarad, neu yn mynd i ddarfod siarad o, fedra ni neu penderfyniad ar y 7 yna, cos dyn nhw'n yma. Y mistec nath o byd o dyn nhw'n ôl yn lle cyntaf. Wel, mae rhaid i ni wneud penderfyniad heddiw, a'r unig penderfyniad ydyn ni'n wneud yn y meddwl i, ydy wrthod o, a bod nhw'n dod yn ôl, dwi'n mynd i gostio'n byd nhw, mae rhaid nhw'n wneud yr adroddiad yna beth bynnag, dod yn ôl efo'r adroddiad yna, gan gobeithio gan i bethau i basio fod trwy'n saf. Ond heddiw, fel i, di ffaith bod yna 200 wedi sgwennu llythyrau. Be da chi'n neud, da chi'n gwrthod os am ond 20 sydd wedi'i gwneud. Dyn ni'n ddyddi y tystiolaeth yn eisiau, a tystiolaeth i gyd ddim yma am bod y 7 peth na beth i basio. Nys na ni'n dewis yn y meddwl i bod ni'n fod i wrthod o heddiw a i ddod nôl. Diolch Oscar, a diolch Elwyn. Reit, Elwyn.
Gai ofyn cwestiwn yma, dwi'n meddwl bod o'n bwysig. Mae hwn yn dod ar ben ers blynyddoedd y cais yma. Ac yn yr adroddiad, ydym ni'n clywed bod yna ddim digon o wybodaeth yn yr adroddiad gen y swyddogion a rhai pethau. Mae o'n anhygoel i mi bod yna ddim digon o wybodaeth ar ôl cyfnod mor hir. Ac os ni'n licio gwybod pam bod yna ddim digon o wybodaeth. Ydy o oherwydd bod o heb cael ei gyflwyno, unte bod o heb cael ei ofyn amdano fo. Sydd yn 2 hollol wahanol beth. Achos dwi jyst yn gofyn y cwestiwn.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. But first of all, a bit of background. I became involved in December last year in this application. However, I think with what's been going on with phosphates over the last couple of years, that has inevitably delayed a lot of applications. And I can't speak before I was involved, but certainly we wanted to get to the bottom of the phosphates issue before we started making any firm conclusions on this application. As I say, we held meetings with NRW. We've had updates from Do Cymru on the timings of when wastewater treatment might be upgraded, and that's, they're unable to confirm exactly when that might happen. It might be in the next 2025, it might be 2030, but once we'd grounded that, I think that's where things led on in terms of, right, we need to determine the application, because as we see it, there's an insurmountable issue here that can't, at the moment, can't be overcome.
Yeah, with respect, maybe it was lost in translation, I don't know, but that doesn't really answer the question I asked. The question I asked was, because there's a list of about 6 or 7 different issues where you say, Sal said, you're refusing because there's insufficient information. What I'm asking is the insufficient information because you feel they withheld information, or is it because the extra information has not been asked for? Because what I feel is, on a project as big as this, if information was asked for, it would have been given.
Yeah, I think so. The applicant was made aware of the reasons in end of February, beginning of March time. So admittedly, with regard to the full scope of the reasons, that was the time that was relayed. But I think, as I say, it's the phosphates issue here that has fueled bringing this committee at this time, because even if the other 6 reasons can be overcome, you've still got that first reason which conflicts with the HRA. And I think, yeah, I think that's what's fueled bringing the application to a conclusion.
Yeah, John. Felly mae hwn yn dod lawr I dim ond phosphate sy'n wrthod y ffordd. Dim ond phosphate sy'n wrthod y ffordd.
Wel,
Ystod nôl o'r pwynt yna. Mae dim ond y phosphate ydi o. Rydych chi'n dweud bod y llyn yn iawn, mae bala'n iawn, ond o Corwen I lawr mae'r broblem. Ond dwi'n meddwl dyle ni wrthod hwn oherwydd y broblem o Corwen I lawr, a fod talgylch y bala'n iawn. Dwi'n gwybod sut llawn I wrthod ar hynny. Os mae phosphate styrid i'r broblem, dwi'n lawr mae phosphate styrid i'r broblem, ydych chi'n bryder iawn. Os oedd o lawr hynna, wel, dwi'n gweld, ydych chi'n wrthod ar hynna.
Ond wedyn ni'n mynd y site item.
A'r llwyddo wedi mae dim ond y phosphate styrid yn bwysig cael ei bawn nhw, I bydsa fo gallu pasio fo. A roi argymhelliad I fewn sy'n ddigon teg. Ond oherwydd phosphate, sy'n ddifrod o fewn.
Na, mae fwy na just phosphates, ac hefyd just wrach chi ymlaethu ar ben a Richard dweud, mae na sawl ymgynghoriad wedi digwydd ar y cais yma hefo ymgynghorwyr statudol. So enghraifft, mae cefnffyrdd Llywodraeth Cymru, Trunk Roads Agency, mae nhw wedi gwrthwynebu o'r cychwyn o flwyddyn dwytha hefo cyfarwyddyd arna ni I beidio ganiatáu fo, sydd hefyd yn creu trafferthyn os da eisiau mynd yn erbyn hynna. Mae nhw wedi gwrthwynebu yn yr ymgynghoriad greiddiol blwyddyn dwytha ac yn yr ail ymgynghoriad hydref dwytha hefyd. Felly, mae nhw wedi bod yn eitha clir o'r cychwyn a fel da chi'n gwybod, mae'r datblygwyr, mae'r ymgeisydd yn gallu gweld bob ymateb sydd yn gofyn am rhagor o wybodaeth fel da ni'n gael. Felly, mae nhw wedi bod yn ymwybodol o'r gwybodaeth eraill hefyd.
Felly, roed yna fewn, rhoi cynnydd gymellaf fod yna yn ei lle. Fel ydych chi'n rhoi yn aml iawn dydy. Ydych chi'n gallu weithio rhoi cynnydd tair ar gymellaf fod yna yn ei lle. Gyda 16 am gwahanol bethau ydych chi eisiau yn ei lle, wel, ydych chi'n rhoi nhw fewn yn ei lle. Oedd nhw'n rhan o'r cynnig I basio. Mae hwnnw'n beth, chi'n rhywun sortio eto, yn aml iawn dydy. Yn aml iawn mae rhywun fod cael gyllidio, oce, byddwn I basio fo, ond fe rhaid I hyn fo'n ei lle chi'n cychwyn eto. A na fedra ni'n dyddi. Dwi'n gweld fod ni'n fan hyn, fod ni'n trio ffeindio bob ffordd I wrthod o. Fod pobl ni'n mynd cyntaf, fod nhw'n trio ffeindio bob ffordd I wrthod o. Trech nad ymwneud edrych ymlaen, ac o'n oce, nawn ni gefnogio, rhaid I hyn fo'n ei lle chi'n cychwyn y gwaith. Mae'n ddwy ffordd edrych wedi edrych yn egyddol neu'n positif. Dwi'n meddwl mae edrych yn egyddol wedi rwan a ddim yn positif ar greu economi.
Cynllunio fe mae John yn dweud o fanna, rhaid y caniatâd, a dim criw o gowbois ydy rhywbeth o bara na cyngor bala. Unrhyw ffactri gemyga ddwad o rwla sy'n wedi diflannu dros nos, dyn nhw maen nhw'n beth yn mynd i fod yna I bala ac i'r gymuned ma'n byth. A dwi'n gwybod, rhaid caniatâd, ond fel da chi'n dweud, rhaid y canllawia mewn, bod nhw'n cydymffurfio nhw'n iawn, neu mynd nhw gan lawr. A dyn nhw'n isio torri'r gyfraith. Dyn nhw'n isio creu traffa, dwi'n meddwl, o gwbl, a dyn nhw'n isio rhagru'r ddiar na'n byd. I'n nhw gael yr hawl i gario ymlaen, a bod yna ganllawia yna, bod nhw'n, gowch i'r diat ad, da chi'n gorfod gwneud hyn, i ddod i fyny i'r safon gywir i redag a gwneud beth da chi eisiau gwneud, lly. Dwi'n meddwl bod hynny'n rhywbeth, dwi'n meddwl bod hwnna'n gynnig yn synnwyr cyffredin mewn ffordd, lly. A dwi'n meddwl bod pam na lle rhywbeth fel la ddim cael ei gynnig, dydy gwir.
O, dydy, di gynnig. Dwi'n eidrio Dilwyn, dwi'n gofyn nhw'n ar y gyfeilliad i hynny.
Dwi'n esbonio'r sefyllfa.
Ie.
Y gynnig wedi cael ei wneud, mae wedi cael ei eilio. Fydda i ddim derbyn cynnig arall. A mae hwnna'n eitha cynnig sydd wedi cael ei eilio bleidlais. Os yna cael ei basio dyna'r sefyllfa, os yw'n methu yna, mae groesio gyda'r cynnig arall gyda'n y pwyllgor.
Felly, mae hynny'n dod â ni, dwi'n fod ni wedi cael trafodaeth da. Gael gofyn un cwestiwn ar fater y bydd. John, pa bryd oedd y cais i mewn? Mae'n sôn y 9 mlynedd yma.
Na, nath y cais i fewn, dwi'n meddwl Hydref 2021, wrach gath ei ddilysu posib tu a Rhagfyr. Felly,
gyfresu ar yna fod yr hugain o dachled.
90 dachled, ia.
2021.
A wedyn ymgynghoriad cyhoeddus, ia, diwedd 2021, mynd fewn i 2022. Ail ymgynghoriad.
Nath nhw'n dod am pre-app?
Nath o, beth ydych chi'n galw'n pre-application consultation statudol hefo cyrff eraill yn yr ardal. Nath nhw ddim wneud pre-application hefo swyddogion y parc.
Lefel wedi gwneud?
Na, dim rhaid nhw'n wneud hynna.
Nag i ran lles i hunan o'n i. Oce, dwi am cael penmwdw ar y trafodaeth wan. Mi awn ni at
y cynnig ydy i wrthod, felly pawb o blaen roedd y llaw i fyny rhai o'r chi sydd ar-lein, fysa chi yn rhoi tic os da chi'n cytuno, neu croes os da chi'n anghytuno. Wedyn nawn ni gyfri yn unol ar drefn arferol wedyn.
Reit.
So pawb sydd o blaen. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8. Jyst wneud ar y restr sgynna i. So 8. Un. Sorry, gael ofyn i chi godi eto. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. 8 o blaid, pawb yn erbyn y cynnig yna. 1, 2, 3, 4. Felly, mae di gario, a penderfyniad ydy gwrthod.
Diolch yn fawr, yna i handio drosodd yn dod, Elwyn, sydd o'n chwarae ar ei PlayStation. Mi ffonio Elwyn. Ti'n gael yno?
Mae'n dal yn ystafell aros.
Cadeirydd, sgynol panad. Cadeirydd, sgynol panad. No, diolch.
Mae'n gen i gael atafod.
Reit.
Eitem 4 drosodd, neu handio drosodd yn dol wan i Elwyn Edwards.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn. Cadeirydd. Awn ni mlaen felly i rif 5 ar dudalen 173.
140.
140, John, de. Ia. Sef rhybuddion gorfodaeth. Dalen 141. Rhywun gwestiwn yn fanna? 142. 143. 44. 45. 46. 47. 48. 49. 150. 151. 52. 53. 54. 55. 56. 57. 58. 59. 60. 161. 62. 63.
Mae John efo'i lawr fyny.
John, iawn.
Cwestiwn yn gofyn, efo Nana, se rhyw updates, se rhyw newid wedi bod efo Nana ers y ffordd gweithio?
We haven't heard back from having to, but we are liaising with, we have recently had a meeting and that we have provided in relation to for such we should know for the board in terms of whether we've been successful with the anything.
Have we got any timeline, you think?
I'm sorry, Jane, could you speak up? Because
Oh,
we can't see you.
sorry,
There
we go.
We can't
Is
hear
that,
you.
is that,
We can't
is that,
see-
that better? Is that better now?
Yeah.
We can't hear you. At this end.
Can you, yeah, sorry, do you want me to speak that way? So, in terms of timeline, we haven't got anything as such, but we are progressing it. So I'd like to think, hopefully with sort of the next 2 committee meetings, there will be an update, further update.
Okay, dechrau, cadwch y bwysau ymlaen, ymlaen ar bila bendigedig yn yr ardal.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. 163. A 64. Dyn o'n ymlaen i gytundebau adran 106 er gwybodaeth. 166. 167. Ceisiadau sy'n destyn cytundeb adran 106 wedi cael ei gwblhau. Wedyn, dyn ni'n ymlaen wedyn i ceisiadau na phenderfynwyd arnynt ers 13 wythnos o mwy. 169. 70. 171. 172. Penderfyniadau dirfwriedig rwan, ein to ar y gwybodaeth. 174. Wedi caniatáu mae'r ein. 75. 176. 177. Ac 178. Wedyn ceisiadau wedi gwrthod. 179. 180. 81. 82. Ac 83. A dyna ni, da ni dod i'r eitem ola rwan, yr penderfyniad yr apel. Da ni wedi colli hon. Di Jonathan eisiau egluro fan hyn. Am bo hon di
Bosib ddim fi gorau i egluro mynolder hwn. Dwi'n meddwl mae'n gwybod Richard ar-lein. Richard nath delio fo hwn, dwi'n meddwl. Mae hwn wedi dod ar rhediad da o ennill apeliadau i ben i ni, yn cael rhediad da iawn. Gyd hwn. Richard, do you want to come in?
Diolch, Cadeirydd. The crux of this appeal, if I just give a little bit of background, first of all, it was a former outdoor pursuits centre owned by Conwy Council. They applied to convert it to a dwelling back in 2006, I think it was, and it was approved at committee with a Section 106 agreement. It was a very tight 106 agreement that it would be for somebody. It's an old style Section 106 agreement. Now, normally there would have been 30-mile radius, but this one was reduced down to a 2-mile radius, which excluded Betws-y-Coed and Llanrwst. It was a 106 for anybody employed within that area. It wasn't an affordable, or there wasn't an element of affordability within that 106, but the 106 in itself reduces the price. But as is normal with a lot of these old style ones, we get applications in to either change them to the new style, which is the affordable local occupancy, or to extinguish it in its entirety. In this case, the applicants wanted it extinguished in its entirety. It was refused. Well, we invited them to enter into a new style, affordable local occupancy. They or some. They turned that down and appealed the decision. In these cases, what has to be proved is that it still serves a useful purpose, and in this case, the inspector felt it didn't serve a useful purpose in that it didn't have the affordability element in it, even with the agreement in place. It didn't reduce the price of the or the value of the property down to an affordable rate. I think they suggested it was the value of the property was over £300,000. Evidence has shown, or experience has shown, that the old style radius 106s reduces values by around about a third, possibly. So that was still outside the element for affordability by any local person seeking or who couldn't get onto the housing market in the usual way. So the inspector felt it didn't serve a reasonable purpose and removed the agreement in its entirety. So that's the background to it.
Iawn, diolch o'r iawn, Richard. Sgyn rhywun rhyw gwestiwn neu beth i ddweud am hyn? John.
Diolch yn fawr. Mae hwn wedi agor drysau lawer iawn rwan, ydy, achos mae prisiau tai wedi codi yn y 5 mlynedd dwytha, o ti werth 200,000, adeg ydy, mae werth 300,000, 400,000 heddiw, ac yn ystyrgolygfa fendigedig ac ati, mae hwn wedi agor drysau llawer iawn rwan, applications, dydy. Wedyn, oes e bwrpas i 106 erbyn hyn?
Well, the old style 30-mile radius, what we have found is that where we at properties in the open countryside where the values are significantly higher than urban areas, it doesn't serve a useful purpose, and we have lifted some of them without refusing the applications. But in urban areas where the values are, or smaller properties where the values are lower, they do still serve a purpose. And it's as we said, we have refused applications and we have won on appeals on that basis, that the differential between the open market value and the affordable value is still capable of being reduced sufficient for it to be affordable by those seeking affordable dwellings. So we have refused them and we have won on appeals, but equally we have lost other appeals as well.
Os gan o fewn, gyda'n i ychwanegu at pwynt John, 100% oes, mae cytundeb y 106 yn hynod bwysig I ni sicrhau cael tai fforddiadwy lleol. Mae hynny'n rhywbeth andros o bwysig, da ni eisiau lot fawr mwy ohonyn nhw os fedrwn ni. Dwi'n meddwl, dydyn ni ddim yn cynnig bach yma beth bellach, fel mae Richard yn dweud, felly mae hwnnw'n rhywbeth hanesyddol. A mae nhw'n creu, am yn dod fewn, da ni byth gweithio siŵr sut I ddelu efo nhw, felly da ni wedi ennill te rhyw 6 apel, da ni wedi colli trwy 6 neu 7 dros y blynyddoedd. So mae o'n maes lle da ni ddim yn... Mae rhaid bod ni'n cyfraniad at fforddiadwyr, fel ydy'r prif beth, ac doedd hwn ddim, felly nawn ni ddysgu hynny.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Os rhywun arall sy'n gofyn cwestiwn? Neu ddown ni ar cyfarfod I ben. Mae'r cyfarfod nesaf yn cychwyn syth bin rwan, yndi? Diolch yn fawr I chi.
Gai awgrymu efo, da ni'n agosau at hanner dydd rwan yn dydan.
Sian di ofyn y cinio, faint fydd yr awr sy'n ei cinio fynd? Mae'n fyr.
So ni'n gyda car ymlaen, dydyn ni bod ni'n cael rhyw storiad ar y 10 munud. A ail ymgynnull at hanner dydd.
Hanner dydd, ia.
Ar gyfer, ond da chi ar link gwahanol o sut?
Anwen, ydy'n bosib I mi gael link Zoom i'r cyfarfod nesaf, gwelwch chi dda?